Hello and welcome to the English edition of the Scan Daily News. My name is Garis Duma. Public administration will not be given their annual bonus of 10,000 lek allocated by the government at the end of the year. According to trusted sources, Scan TV learned that this fund destined to go to the payment of disabled people. The financial difficulties facing state coffers this year has forced the government to break the tradition of annual year-end bonuses for public administration. Reliable sources from the executive suggest for Scan TV that this year the reward of 10,000 lek will not be distributed to about 90,000 employees for public administrations. The funds allocated for this purpose will go to repayment of obligations to persons with disabilities who for months have not received the payments due to them. To solve this problem, for weeks the Ministry of Social Welfare and Finance are in discussions to find the fund that can be used for payment of the fee for at least 1 month, so that in January the settlement of all arrears can begin. The practice of giving awards every end of the year for public administration started in 2005 after the abolition of the 13th salary. The current majority, before taking the executive power, has announced that it will reinstate the 13th salary for public administration as a form of annual compensation. But this year, the public administration should rejoice only their monthly salaries. The demands from entrepreneurships keep adding for more transparency in the changes that are being done in fiscal legislation. According to Austrian business representatives operating in Albania, more debate is required on amendment of these laws. Meanwhile, the climate of doing business in Albania is seen with optimism by Austrian entrepreneurship. Just a day after the U.S. business request, Austrian business requires more government transparency and clarity on the changes expected to be made on fiscal legislation. The economic situation and the climate of doing business in Albania is seen with optimism by Austrian entrepreneurship, according to whom are going to increase their presence over the next year. This is the conclusion of a survey that the commercial office near the Austrian embassy in Tirana has arrived at regarding the climate for doing business in Albania. While in regards to priority sectors, they seek to increase their presence are textiles, mining, and energy industry. Currently, over 40 Austrian companies develop their economic activity in our country in important sectors, and the value of their investments are worth around 500 million euros. The former finance minister Arben Malaj states that the government should ensure implementation of the new budget at the start of the year and work intensively to clarify the new fiscal package for businesses. In a television interview with Scan, Mr. Malaj said that under the condition where there is a comprehensive reform of the tax system, the government should pay attention to their administration. The delays in approving the budget draft and the 2014 fiscal package seriously jeopardize their entry into force at the beginning of January next year. While the drafts are still under discussion, former Finance Minister Arben Malaj, now head of the Institute for Good Governance, advises the government to take measures to avoid repeating the deadlock created a year ago for the same reasons. Along with the budget measures, Mr. Malaj says that in regards to the fiscal package, the government should work intensively to inform business so that the latter is not penalized by the unfamiliarity of the fiscal changes. But, unlike a year ago, the draft budget is accompanied by a package that basically reviews the entire fiscal system. With these conditions, according to Mr. Malaj, the government should pay attention to the fact that the tax administration becomes more difficult. The preliminary draft of a new fiscal package in its entirety reflects most of the commitments made by the executive government program to change the model of taxation for businesses and wages, as well as fiscal facilities provided for different categories of society. During the 10 months of this year, new credit to business has fallen by about 21% compared to the same period a year ago. According to the central bank, credit is declining for all sectors of the economy, ranging from trade, which occupies the major share in banking credit. Business lending followed a weak pace during October. According to the Bank of Albania, the new credit to businesses reached a value of 12.8 billion lek, a slight increase compared to the month of September, but compared to the same period last year with a decline of 42%. The figures thus become progressively more negative, and 10-month new credits to businesses have fallen by nearly 21%. Lending has declined for all sectors of the economy, ranging from trade, which occupies the main weight on bank credit. The new credit trade fell by 17% compared to the same period a year ago. The weakening of consumer demand and sales volumes is reflected in the declining rates of financial intermediation of the trade sector. The credit contraction has affected productive sectors of the economy. The most important segment, the extracting industry, has fallen in new credit rates by 16%, while manufacturing has dropped by 25% and agriculture by 7%. Neither monetary policy easing nor other measures to encourage lending are producing any visible effects. The Bank of Albania notes that the main problem is a weak demand for business loans. The reduction in the base interest rate is once again reflected in the reduction of interest treasury bonds. Bonds with a 12-month maturity were issued with a weighted average interest of 3.62%. Meanwhile, the government provided a loan of 13.4 billion lek, which for the first time in many months the financing offer was equal to the demand of the executive. The reduction in the base interest rate is once again reflected in the reduction of interest treasury bonds. As has happened historically in recent years, the first auction rate reduction was accompanied by falling interest rates of treasury bills. Bonds with 12-month maturity were issued with a weighted average interest of 3.62%. This is a new record in bonds with a maturity of 6 months, which were issued at a weighted average interest rate of 3.39% from 3.49% interest in recent auctions. Altogether, the government provided a loan of 13.4 billion lek, while for the first time after many months the financing offer was equal to the government's request. This may be a sign that supply and demand are achieving a balance of interests and soon may revert bond growth after months of declines that have led to unprecedented interest levels. An important factor for the interest of government debt securities will be next year's budget, to be presented by the government during these days. The projected deficit in the budget will determine the amount of borrowing for next year. A Swiss project was officially launched which intends to open about 11 new employment opportunities for young people in Albania. Next month, the first modern office that will serve as the intermediary between businesses and job seekers will officially open. Vocational education should focus on the areas that serve prospective fields and employment. By identifying schools that already exist in this backward format of curriculum, the Minister of Social Welfare, Erjon Veliaj, said that the government will change the scheme by providing more opportunities for young people. During the presentation of the Swiss program for employment, Risi Albania, the minister announced that next month a modern office to serve as the intermediary between business and job seekers will open for business. Risi Albania identified sectors with the greatest potential to create jobs for young people: agro-processing, tourism, information and communication technology, and the manufacture of clothing and footwear. The objective of this project is to put 11,000 new employees in the 3 selected sectors. Thank you for following our edition. My name is Garis Duma.